I'm making for you that has a read along, very much like Reader's Theater. Basically, each of the main voices in this reading are going to be different. So you have a different narrator voice, somebody reading the narration. You have somebody reading the voice of Tom and when he speaks, and then somebody reading the voice of Ben and when he speaks. Instead of us doing a Reader's Theater for our first read, I thought this would be better just because this is taking place in the 1800s in Mississippi, along the Mississippi River, and people back then had a very different dialect, the way they spoke. It's very difficult when you read a dialect of which you don't know anything about. It's hard to understand how this should be pronounced. So this way we have some professional readers reading this the way we should be. Now, I know the man sounds a little boring, but he's going to be able to say each of these words very pronouncedly, and I need you to follow them very closely, because with your groups, you will be doing a Reader's Theater for the second read. So make sure you pay close attention, because you don't know if you're going to be Tom, Ben, or the narrator, or doing parts of the narrator back and forth with your other partner. So make sure you pay close attention. Have your, with this video up, have your excerpt from Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I'm going to prompt you to pause the video and go back and do some annotation, either per paragraph or probably per page. And that should be easier because there's a lot of talking going on, a lot of dialect. So you shouldn't be highlighting all the dialect, just little bits and pieces of it to help you narrow your thinking of this is what's really going on. This is what Tom is trying to do. This is the mindset Tom is trying to change. So I'm going to switch over to, this is the video that I found, Liverbox recording. They do a good job, but this stuff pulsates, so it's not pleasing to the eye. I've started the video a little early, so it says 3:50, so you're going to hear some words that are not part of our excerpt, but they are part of Chapter 2. But this way, when it hits 3:54, it does start the readout of where we are. And you'll see me swipe back and hit the pause button, and then go back and forth, allowing you to have that time to annotate.
The slipper in her hand and triumph in her eye. But Tom's energy did not last. He began to think of the fun he had planned for this day, and his sorrows multiplied. Soon the free boys would come tripping along on all sorts of delicious expeditions, and they would make a world of fun of him for having to work. The very thought of it burnt him like fire. He got out his worldly wealth and examined it. Bits of toys, marbles, and trash. Enough to buy an exchange of work, maybe, but not half enough to buy so much as half an hour of pure freedom. So he returned his straitened means to his pocket and gave up the idea of trying to buy the boys. At this dark and hopeless moment, an inspiration burst upon him. Nothing less than a great, magnificent inspiration. He took up his brush and went tranquilly to work. Ben Rogers hove in sight presently, the very boy of all boys whose ridicule he had been dreading. Ben's gait was the hop, skip, and jump, proof enough that his heart was light and his anticipations high. He was eating an apple and giving a long, melodious whoop at intervals, followed by a deep-toned ding-dong-dong, ding-dong-dong, for he was personating a steamboat. As he drew near, he slackened speed, took the middle of the street, leaned far over to starboard, and rounded to, ponderously and with laborious pomp and circumstance, for he was personating the big Missouri, and considered himself to be drawing 9 feet of water. He was boat and captain and engine bells combined, so he had to imagine himself standing on his own hurricane deck, giving the orders and executing them.
Stoppers. All right, so I'm going to stop here. I want you to pause this video and go and annotate these 2 paragraphs. This one should kind of already be annotated because we worked on this as a group. But if you missed this one, let's go ahead and do some annotation here and some annotation right here. Your annotation guidelines are highlighting key details to help you place the story in your mind and any rhetorical moves that you see, and then bold and underline any engaging language that you see as well. All right, so welcome back. If you pause, that's great. Thank you very much. I'm going to continue the read, and we are here at Stop or Sir Ting-a-ling-a-ling, and then I'm going to throw us into this next one. So I'm working off of a PDF here, so it's going to look a little jumpy, but I'm going to try to keep it as smooth as I possibly can. Okay. Actually, that's probably a better motion to use. All right.
Sir, ting-a-ling-ling.
The headway ran almost out, and he drew up slowly toward the sidewalk.
Shape up to back, ting-a-ling-ling.
His arms straightened and stiffened down his sides.
Set her back on stabber, ting-a-ling-ling. Chow, ch-chow, wow, chow.
His right hand, meantime, describing stately circles, for it was representing a 40-foot wheel.
Let her go back on the stabber, ting-a-ling-ling. Cha-chow.
The left hand began to describe circles.
Stop the stabber, ting-a-ling-ling. Stop the labyrinth. Come ahead on the stabber. Stop her. Let your outside turn over slow. Ting-a-ling-ling. Chow wow wow. Get out that headline. Lively now. Come out with your spring line. What are you about there? Take a turn round the stump with the bite of it. Stand by that stage now. Let her go. Done with the engine, sir. Ting-a-ling-ling. Shh, shh, shh.
Trying the gauge cocks. Tom went on whitewashing, paid no attention to the steamboat. Ben stared a moment and then said,
Hi, you're a stump, ain't you?
No.
All right, I'm pausing there. I would say a lot of this you probably don't need to worry about annotating. It's really just him impersonating a steamboat engine. He, like the narrator said, he is the boat. He's pretending to be the boat. He's pretending to be the captain and the engine with all the bells and whistles, all that combined. He's everything. And this is his form of entertainment right now as he's going off to wherever he's going. So I would say you already have this annotated. A lot of this is just what he's doing in terms of pretending. If you want to annotate some stuff, you can go ahead. Like his right hand describing stately circles, representing a 40-foot wheel. So kind of like what his imagination is coming up with. And then up here at the top, we kind of ended down here. Tom went on whitewashing, paid no attention to the steamboat. This is crucial. Even if you highlight this whole piece right here, I'm fine with that. But he paid no attention. He knows he's there. He has seen him, but he's paying no attention to the steamboat. That is really crucial. Pause the video, make those annotations, and then come back. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to continue on, and we are here at no answer.
No answer. Tom surveyed his last touch with an eye of an artist. Then he gave his brush another gentle sweep and surveyed the result as before. Ben ranged up alongside of him. Tom's mouth watered for the apple, but he stuck to his work. Ben said,
Hello, old chap. You got to work, hey?
Tom wheeled suddenly and said,
Why, it's you, Ben. I weren't noticing.
Say, I'm going in a swimming, I am. Don't you wish you could? But of course you'd rather work, wouldn't you? Of course you would.
Tom contemplated the boy a bit and said,
What do you call work?
Why, ain't that work?
Tom resumed his whitewashing and answered carelessly,
Well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer.
Oh, come now. You don't mean to let on that you like it.
The brush continued to move.
Like it? Well, I don't see why I oughtn't to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day?
That put...
All right, so I'm going to stop there again. So this is kind of where you are. He didn't answer Ben. He's surveying his last touch with the eye of an artist. So he's trying to look very, very into his work, although he's not going to call it work to Ben. So this is the conversation had between Tom and Ben. And I want you to go through here and kind of pick about a few pieces of text evidence, like full pieces that you would consider rhetorical moves, because he's saying these things for a reason. He is saying them to change Ben's mind for a reason. All right, so from no answer down to the very last of this page, go ahead and annotate, pause the video, come back, and we will continue from there. All right, so welcome back. We're going to begin at the top of this page now.
The thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect again. Ben, watching every move and getting more and more interested, more and more absorbed. Presently, he said,
Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little.
Tom considered, was about to consent, but he altered his mind.
No, I reckon it wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly's awful particular about this fence, right here on the street, you know. But if it was the back fence, I wouldn't mind, and she wouldn't. Yes, she's awful particular about this fence. It's got to be done very careful. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done.
No, is that so? Oh, come on now, let me just try. Only just a little. I'd let you if you was me, Tom.
Ben, I'd like to, honest Injun, but Aunt Polly, well, Jim wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let him. Sid wanted to do it, and she wouldn't let Sid. Now don't you see how I'm fixed? If you was to tackle this fence and anything was to happen to it...
Oh, shucks, I'll be just as careful. Now, let me try. Say, I'll give you the car of my apple.
Well, here, no, Ben, now don't, I'm afeard.
I'll give you all of it.
All right, so I'm going to stop there again. And so here's the rest of their dialect, their back and forth. Or I should not say dialect, their dialogue. Their dialogue, that's the conversation back and forth between two people. So go through here and pick out a few more rhetorical moves that you see Tom doing. And little things that he says that he's saying for a reason to try to do what he's doing to Ben. And I'll give you a little bit of insight. So this is part of Chapter 2 from Tom Sawyer. And I know I discussed with you earlier that Chapter 1, Aunt Polly, who is his caretaker because Tom is an orphan, Aunt Polly caught him skipping school, and this is his punishment on a Saturday, is to whitewash her fence. And whitewashing a fence is basically painting it white and making the old wood look a little bit newer. So, and it says here that, down here, I apologize, that, well, Jim wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let him. Earlier in this chapter, Jim is coming from the watering hole, lugging water back and forth, and Tom always thought that was, an awful chore, but now he thinks that chore is better than the chore he's got. And he was trying to convince Jim to switch the chores on him. But Jim didn't fall for it. Sid is Tom's, it's been a long time since I've read this. It's either Tom's younger brother, who is also orphaned and under Aunt Polly, or it's Aunt Polly's son. And that's where the name Sid comes from. Sid wanting to do it, but, she wouldn't let him. So he's really trying to make it look like he's the only one that can do this. And when you make it look like that, you're like, oh no, I can do it too, kind of thing. So he's really trying to change that mindset. So go ahead and pause the video, and then we're going to come back to this piece right here. And this is the last paragraph we're going to read, and the last one you'll be annotating. All right, welcome back. I'm going to go ahead and start the reading of this last paragraph.
Tom gave up the brush with reluctance in his face, but alacrity in his heart. And while the late steamer, Big Missouri, worked and sweated in the sun, the retired artist sat on a barrel in the shade close by, dangled his legs, munched his apple, and planned the slaughter of more innocents. There was no lack of material. Boys happened along every little while. They came to jeer, but remained to whitewash. By the time Ben was fagged out, Tom had traded the next chance to Billy Fisher for a kite in good repair. And when he played out, Johnny Miller bought in for a dead rat and a string to swing it with. And so on, hour after hour. And when the middle of the afternoon came, from being a poor, poverty-stricken boy in the morning, Tom was literally rolling in wealth. He had, besides the things before mentioned, 12 marbles, part of a Jew's harp, a piece of blue bottle glass to look through, a spool cannon, a key that wouldn't unlock anything, a fragment of chalk, a glass stopper of a decanter, a tin soldier, a couple of tadpoles, 6 firecrackers, a kitten with only one eye, a brass doorknob, a dog collar, but no dog, the handle of a knife, 4 pieces of orange peel, and a dilapidated old window sash.
All right, we still have a little bit longer to go. So in this here paragraph, I would not annotate all of the stuff that he has now. I would just kind of do Tom rolling in wealth. And to them, this is wealth. This is 1800s. There's no video games, TVs, electronics, and none of that stuff. To take a bath in relatively warm water, you had to heat the water up over a fire. And several people would use the same bath water because it was just like that way back in the day. If you honestly don't believe me, or you're just like, is that seriously right? Go research living in the 1800s, and this is what this boy grew up with. So all of this to him, again, is main wealth because he has it and they don't. Even if it's an apple core, he has one and somebody else doesn't. So to them, as boys growing up in this time and age, that is wealth to them. So go ahead and pause. Your annotation should be up here towards the top of what, Tom is doing. Some of that engaging language, you got reluctant and then to a clarity. And then I love how he compares himself and Ben to the 2 original analogies. So Ben was the Big Missouri. That's who he was pretending to be. The late steamer Big Missouri. So he's no longer pretending to be the Big Missouri. Now he's whitewashing. And the retired artist, because now he's no longer painting like he's an artist. He's sitting back and watching it be done for him. So go ahead and pause, annotate a little bit, and then come back to the video. All right, so this is the last page, and it's very short. So I'm going to play the video the rest of the way, all the way through, and then once this video is over, I will have you turn the video off and continue to annotate this last bit, and then return back to the Google Doc that breaks us down this whole lesson down. And I believe you should be taking a little quiz on this, but go back and check that Google Doc first.
He had had a nice, good, idle time all the while, plenty of company, and the fence had 3 coats of whitewash on it. And if he hadn't run out of whitewash, he would have bankrupted every boy in the village. Tom said to himself that it was not such a hollow world after all. He had discovered a great law of human action without knowing it. Namely, that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to attain. If he had been a great and wise philosopher, like the writer of this book, he would now have comprehended that work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and that play consisted of whatever a body is not obliged to do. And this would help him to understand why constructing artificial flowers or performing on a treadmill is work, while rolling 10 pins or climbing Mont Blanc is only amusement. There are wealthy gentlemen in England who drive 4-horse passenger coaches 20 or 30 miles on a daily line in the summer because the privilege costs them considerable money. But if they were offered wages for the service, that would turn it into work, and then they would resign. The boy mused a while over the substantial change which had taken place in his worldly circumstances, and then wended toward headquarters to report.
Okay, so that is the end of the excerpt that we are reading from. I love this idea of his, which it makes some sense, but it's kind of one of those ideas that he tries to encompass all of it in there. And there are some people out there that do enjoy the work that they do, which is amazing. I do enjoy my work. There are some parts of my work that I don't enjoy, but there's many parts of my work that I do enjoy, or I would not be doing it. but I love how he takes English drivers driving 4-horse passengers coaches 20 or 30 miles on a daily line in the summer because the privilege costs them considerable money. So it costs them to do it, making it more like, let me spend money on doing this because I like to do it. But if he's saying that if it was the other way around and they were paid to do it, that would turn it into work and they would resign. So this is a little of a fallacy here, in my opinion, which basically means, it doesn't obtain to everybody. But it's a really neat way that Tom's thinking really kind of switches gears, and he starts, really philosophizing on what he's just done to get out of work, but yet have the work done for him. Really, really neat part of this story. Probably my favorite part of the Tom Sawyer story. And it's in the very beginning of the book, so which is also nice because usually you don't get stuff like this in the very beginning of a book. So finish annotating and then return back to our Google Doc of what the next thing that we are doing is going to be. And the next thing we're going to do is you are, I believe, able, after the quiz, of course, is you're able to work with a partner on the graphic organizer. So make sure this is done so you can work with your partner or your group and you can truly help them through this.